Is it abusive to send your young children to daycare? Are working moms inexplicably exposing their children to emotional damage by sending them to daycare when they're under 3 years old? Today, we are going to talk about the viral daycare debate that exploded on Twitter, X, this week, resulting in many people discussing whether daycare is harmful to children and whether it's wrong for working moms to send their kids to a daycare facility. And then we're going to finish off with the number one most practical tip for moms who are juggling work and motherhood, whether you are a full-time worker or a part-time worker. So stick around for that, because I know there are a lot of moms out there who are juggling both. If you're new here, welcome to The Shift with Gina, a podcast where we talk about building healthy, whole women for strong families and a thriving society. The daycare debate started when a therapist named Stephanie Wynn shared a video compilation of young kids, about toddler age, definitely 3 or younger, running to their mommies when they are picked up from daycare. They're crying hysterically. They're visibly upset. So I want to show you what the video looks like first. Let's take a look at it. It's about a minute. If you are just listening to the audio, if you're just listening to the podcast, I'm going to kind of narrate what's happening because it's just music in the background. So the title of this is, "You Won't Ever Convince Me That This Doesn't Hurt Children." Let's take a look. So a little boy sees mommy is there, comes running out, sobbing, crying into mommy's arms. The text says it was her first day getting picked up from daycare. She comes running to mommy or daddy. Another one turns around, sees that mommy's outside the window, comes running out, screaming, crying. Oh, look at that one. That's so sad. Says he waited all day to see his parents. So he sees mom, he's got his little backpack on, he starts crying, he looks so scared. This one says he cried so hard he couldn't even walk. This one looks a little older, maybe 3 or 4. I have no words for this one, it says. Oh, baby's crying. That one looks young. Okay. That's the video. Everyone is talking about this video. In the tweet that Stephanie shared this video with, she wrote, "In my role as a therapist, I have had an increasingly difficult time keeping my mouth shut whenever a pregnant woman or new mom was planning on sending her baby to daycare so she could return to work. This separation is unnatural and far from optimal." For some reason, an account called Funny Videos shared the original video, the compilation of all the kids crying, but it's actually really sad to see all these young kids crying as they run to mommy. They're obviously not physically hurt, but these poor little kids are expressing how much they missed mommy all day long. And there's some contrarians who are like, I don't see what's wrong with this video. The kids were playing just fine before the mom came. And then when they saw the mom, they started freaking out. So the kids were fine during the day. I don't think you guys understand how young kids work. If a child is dropped off into a strange environment, they cry when they're first dropped off if they don't feel comfortable. And then they realize when mommy or daddy are gone that they have no other choice but to adapt. So they adapt, they start playing, they keep themselves busy, but in the back of their mind, they know that mommy's not there. They know that daddy's gone. And so when they see mommy, they're like, oh my gosh, all the emotions come back. So it's not like just because the kids are just sitting there playing that they're perfectly happy the entire time and that's where they prefer to be. I think the reaction of these children, it's very similar. It's all the same. They all tell kind of the same story, even though they were playing nicely before the mom showed up. It's clear that there was a lot of fear and anxiety behind their eyes that is just being released whenever they see mommy. So before we go on to talk more in depth about this video, I want to tell you about my new dumbbell workout program. Who wants to get fit for summer without having to pay for a personal trainer or invest hugely in yourself financially to get those fitness results? I've got a brand new 10-week dumbbell workout program. You can do it at home if you have dumbbells. You can do it at the gym if you have a gym membership. It's 3 strength workouts a week, and I also give you a whole list of cardio workouts to add in between the strength workouts. You're going to be doing a lot of different movements that work the full body. You're going to get tutorial videos, instructions on how to warm up and cool down and all that. And if you ever have questions on anything, you guys can always reach out to me and ask. But this is a really great program that I use for both myself and a lot of my clients. I've been doing a lot of these workouts during my pregnancy when my belly is so big and I can barely do anything. So if I can do it when I'm more than 8 months pregnant, you can do it at any time too. It's good for all levels. You can go heavier with your weights if you're a little bit more experienced with working out. If you're brand new, you can keep it light and keep it to your level. So click the link in the description. It's in the show notes. Grab this workout before the sale ends because it's brand new. I just released it, so I'm giving you guys a quick flash sale on it. Okay, let's talk about this video. Thousands of people shared it, commented on it, and offered their thoughts. In the comment section on Stephanie's post, most of the replies were critical of Stephanie's position, especially about the fact that she referred to the mother and not the father. So people are really mad that she talked about the working moms wanting to go back to work. So this tweet, for example, this is a guy, probably some sort of male feminist, that replied to Stephanie's tweet. He said, "Why don't you put the same judgment on the husband? Are we not involved in our children's lives, or is it your blatant stereotyping and discrimination against working moms that stops you? Go back to 1950 and keep women pregnant and in the kitchen." What an emotional outburst from a man. Here's another reply. This one's from a woman. And she says, "Are you kidding me?" So she could return to work, in quotes. "Do you struggle to keep your mouth shut when the father of the child returns to work? This post suggests that the mom has a choice. It also suggests that the dad isn't judged for working when the child is born." Okay, so lots of heated responses here. There's so many more of these, probably hundreds of comments that are essentially saying the same thing. Why mothers and not fathers? They're upset that the mother is being brought into question here when it should be that the fathers are treated just as equally when it comes to childcare for kids this young. This is the prime example of the toxicity of equality, quote, equality, that has permeated our society. People have successfully been programmed to believe that the role of mother and father are interchangeable, which of course has led to the notion that women and men in general are interchangeable. And it all started with this utopian idea that we are perfectly equal, we are one and the same. And if we're equal, that means that our roles are interchangeable and they're pretty much equal. This is an extremely harmful, toxic idea. Of course, women and men are inherently different. That's exactly why we need each other. We are two halves that God brings together to start a family and raise children. This means that the roles of mother and father are inherently different, especially in the first few years of the child's life. It's harmful to both the parents and the children to pretend like a mother's role in the first few years of the baby's life is the same as the father's. You know, even down to the physiological needs of the child, such as breastfeeding. A father can't do that. A dad is not equipped for that. My daughter nursed until she was past her second birthday. That automatically means that my physical presence on a daily basis is more important in those first couple of years than my husband's physical presence on a daily, consistent basis. Of course, this doesn't mean that a father's role is unimportant in the first 2 to 3 years of a child's life, but it just means that his role is different than a mother's role. I also think that all these comments bashing the original poster, Stephanie, for highlighting the role of mother instead of the father, it actually diminishes the sacred, significant role of the mother in a young child's life. Why are we trying to cheapen that? Why does that infuriate people so much to acknowledge that a mother's role in the child's first couple of years of his or her life is so unique and different and sacred, and it differs from what a father's role is? Why are we trying to diminish something that is so beautiful and intentional that God designed for us? And the answer is because our culture has become much more concerned with a false sense of equality than we are with recognizing and honoring the nature that God created with a purpose. People want to pretend like the natural relationship between child and mother doesn't exist for a specific reason. They want to act like it's just something that we socially constructed. Why would you want to get rid of that special connection between mothers and young children? Why would you want to pretend like it's the exact same as a young child with his or her father? This is part of the whole, that's why this whole obsession with equality, it cheapens the unique roles of both mothers and fathers. And it makes neither of them special because in their head, it's both the same. And when everything's the same, when everything is equal, nothing is special. So let's move on to some other commentary that will lead us into the heart of this discussion about daycare. So I'm going to start showing you some commentary of people who are obviously against daycare. They don't want to see young kids in daycare. This person says, E for America, I sent my children to preschool programs when they were about 2 or 3. You know, the mommy's day out kind of thing. I'm not making a general statement as to whether this is good or bad, but if I could go back, I would not participate and I would have homeschooled them. That's a pretty powerful response from a mom. And she says it, you know, really nicely in a way that's like, I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just saying that I wish I could go back and change what I did. And then there was a tweet from Kangmin Lee, who I've filmed a podcast episode with him before when I was doing my last show with my friend Mike. We had him on the show. He's a really nice guy, thoughtful, young conservative guy. He says, parents who prioritized becoming corporate wage slaves over their own children are responsible for the child's mental health crisis. Raise your own kids and stop sending them to daycare. Your child doesn't need you. Your child doesn't need more goodies or toys or gadgets or money. They need you. It's insane to send your toddler to spend most of their waking hours with a stranger when they can barely speak. This separation is unnatural, hurtful, and traumatizing for a young child who doesn't know anything but his or her parents. Daycare should be a rare exception for children in extenuating circumstances, not the norm for most children, so their parents can continue to punch numbers into Excel for a soulless corporation. Want a better future for your family and society? It starts in the home. No amount of professional accolades or wealth will be worth scarring your children for life and creating broken souls. Be present, intentional, and loving. We need to break the cycle of brokenness. There were a lot of other tweets similar to this that were calling daycare abusive to young children. And a lot of people were really upset at all the moms out there who were sending their kids away for the day. A lot of the commentators on the right expressed their disappointment and heartbreak over the fact that so many moms would drop their kids off to be looked after by strangers for 8 hours a day. So I'm going to share my thoughts. Here are my thoughts on this. But first, how would you like to lose 10 pounds in 10 weeks? I'm opening up spots for my Fit and Lean 10-week program. Any women out there who are struggling with your weight, with your health, maybe even balancing your hormones, you don't know what to eat, you don't know what to do for exercise, you don't know what you're doing wrong in terms of stress management and sleep. I have a 10-week group coaching program that gives you a weekly group coaching call with me, recipe book, workout plan, macro guidance, and I give you guys everything you need to shed that excess body fat once and for all. I've got a lot of people in there who are past the postpartum phase. They have been trying to lose the weight, but it's just really stubborn. It's not coming off. And a lot of them make the same mistakes. They don't even realize it. It's a lot of common mistakes I see coming in from women. So we work on all of that together, and we log everything into your app. We take progress photos, and I make sure that you get the results you're looking for. So if you're interested in joining this group coaching program, we still have some spots open. It's going to close soon. So just go to the show notes, click the link to join. And if you guys have any questions, please always reach out. You can see some before and after pictures here. We've had some really, really amazing success so far. I'm helping one woman right now get ready for her wedding. She's lost over 10 pounds already in 8 weeks. She looks amazing, dropped a couple dress sizes. So it's your turn. Join us. We'd love to see you there. Here are my thoughts on the daycare video, daycare debate. The visceral reactions that many people have to this video come from the deep recognition that our society has transformed so rapidly over the last century compared to the world that our ancestors lived in, that it has resulted in the destruction of the family unit and a high trust community. And this has led to an unnatural approach to child rearing and caretaking. And this unnatural approach, it cannot be simply boiled down to one thing, which is a mother being away from her young children. The broader issue is that industrialization and the modernization of our culture has broken down the extended family unit and high trust village, where children were always raised and cared for by multiple people, in addition to their mother, who was a primary caretaker. Aunts, grandmothers, cousins, friends, sisters, older siblings, even trusted hired help and apprentices were all involved in the educating, feeding, nurturing, socializing, and even disciplining of young children. Mothers were never meant to raise kids alone. And up until pretty recently in history, they never did. All of our ancestors, they helped each other. They had a lot of help. This high trust village was the way that they raised kids. However, a very important distinction is that these additional caretakers of our ancestors' children were closely related or bonded to the mother and the children by blood, ethnicity and cultural expression, religious values, etc. They shared something much deeper with the family than anything the hourly workers at daycare ever will share with them. A kind of trust that can never be earned with a simple monthly paycheck and some paperwork, like when you sign in your kids to a daycare. This is why so many people feel an intrinsic opposition to daycare videos like this. We know, even if you can't articulate it to yourself, when you see this video, you can see that the rapidly changing landscape of our culture and our economy over the last 100 years have brought forth changes that will never go away. We will never be able to return to those high trust villages again. This leaves many mothers in Western American culture isolated, alone, and without the help that their ancestors always had in the past. And you combine that with the current economy, where there are many families who cannot afford to live on a single income anymore, even in just the last 5 to 10 years. Maybe 10 years ago they could do it. Maybe even 5 years ago they could do it. And these families who have no support from extended family or community members. And this brings much sadness to my heart. I see these videos of little kids running to mommy and daddy, and I personally know a lot of people, not a lot, but I personally know families who really have no other choice but to send their young children to daycare. And it really breaks my heart, and I believe that more compassion is needed. The best that we can do to prevent this kind of caretaking of children is to work harder to build strong communities amongst ourselves so that hopefully someday we can somehow minimize this kind of sterilized, disconnected way of raising children. Reach out to a struggling mom that you know locally. Do you know a mom who is she and her husband are struggling to provide financially for the family, and they're really struggling to take care of their kids at the same time? Reach out to them, ask them how you can help. And if you're struggling yourself, ask for help if you need it. I know that when we see content like this about daycare, our minds immediately go to the moms who just choose to work because they want to maintain the career, they want to make money, they want to have the nice things and the nice handbags and the car, and they want to break from their kids, etc. But I'm not talking about these women. Okay, I'm talking about the women who very reluctantly send their kids to daycare. In fact, out of all the moms I know, like I said, I know moms, some of those moms send their kids to daycare. And out of all of those moms, every single one of them absolutely hates sending their kids to daycare. And they only do it because their family has no other option. And I get messages all the time from women I don't know personally, but from followers or people who just find my page. I get messages from all these women saying that they hate sending their kid to daycare, but they're stuck in a difficult place in this trash economy where they just have no choice. And I actually think that the majority of moms who send their kids to daycare don't want to do it. I really don't think that the majority of them want to. It's a very unnatural thing, and it feels horrible. In fact, we're seeing a lot more moms come out online. Like, I shared this video probably a couple months ago now of this TikToker. She has like an Airbnb up in the mountains or something, and she's also a social worker. And she sent this video out and saying, I think millennial moms were lied to. She was like, I have to pretend every day like I'm okay sending my 3-year-old to daycare, and now my 8-month-old or something, however old the baby is, I'm not okay. She says, none of us moms are okay sending our kids to daycare, but it's like we have no other option. We're stuck in this hamster wheel trying to make ends meet and trying to just make enough money to provide for the family. And we really feel like we have no other option. So I get that a lot of people on the right who really don't like seeing their these kids sent to daycare. I think that a lot of these people forget that most of these moms don't want to do that. Again, I'm not talking about the career moms that would just want to have nice things and they can afford to stay home, but they just choose not to. I'm not talking about them. I actually think that's a minority of daycare moms. I think the majority of moms don't want to do it, and it breaks their heart. And that breaks my heart. The issue is much bigger than placing blame or shame on an individual mother. The collective piece is extremely important. And this is something that the right, I think, often misses. Yes, I do think it's our job as a society to strengthen families and to make it easier for moms to raise their own children. This exclusive obsession with pull yourself up by your own bootstraps is toxic. The role of the state as our early conservative philosophers believed, was to promote the good, not only to protect our God-given rights. Of course, that's a function of the government, but the early conservative philosophers, our founding fathers included, they believed that the role of the state was to promote the good. And that is different. That's a step up from just protecting our God-given rights. And yet today, for some reason, modern conservatives have fallen for the hyper-individualized lies of classical liberal policies. And they're like, the government shouldn't be involved in anything. People should figure it out on their own. No, we shouldn't be passing any policy. The government, no regulation. No, you should figure it out by yourself. Personal responsibility. Yeah, no. The government should be doing its part to foster a culture that is family friendly and supportive of mothers and supportive of families raising their own children and supportive of families having more children. We have become so obsessed with the individual side of things that we forget that there is a collective political aspect too that is extremely, extremely important. And the government should be doing everything that they can within reason to support a healthy future. And a healthy future for a thriving society means strong families where a mother is able to be present for her young children. So when I see videos like this, I see this as a failure of our society and our culture. I don't only see this as blame being placed on individual parents, like it's your fault as a mom and as a dad, you didn't make it work. No, our economy has continuously made, our government has continuously made terrible decisions over the last decade or so to put us in this mess. Outsourcing jobs overseas, mass immigration, automating jobs, and giving away jobs to robots, all of which have driven down wages, made fewer jobs available, and made it harder than ever for a family to live on a single income. Then you have these insanely powerful corporations like BlackRock who are buying up all this property and land, and they're driving up housing costs and making it impossible for many families to buy a starter home and live comfortably when like just 20 to 30 years ago, you could do it. Our country is more concerned with turning a profit for these greedy corporations than bolstering the foundations of our society, which is the family unit. And milquetoast mainstream conservatism that comes from like Turning Point loves to scream about small government, limited government, regulation is bad. This is not actually traditional conservatism. This like vanilla, like, oh, big government sucks. What does big government mean? Are you even going to are we going to define what small government is, what limited government is? The size of the government actually doesn't matter nearly as much as who is in power and what the government is doing. Okay, this idea that government regulation is just inherently bad is not what the founding fathers imagined. In fact, the first conservatives, for example, Edmund Burke, who is known as the first conservative, his philosophy and writings had a huge impact on the founding fathers. He believed that the government should be run by moral individuals who would help shape the morality of society. He believed that the government should be run by individuals who understood that policy should help promote the best values, like family. This reminds me of this viral clip between Tucker Carlson and Ben Shapiro. I think it was actually on Ben Shapiro's show where they somehow got on the topic of a lot of these lower middle class jobs being automated and taken over by robots. And so Ben Shapiro was saying, he was like, so, all of these trucker jobs, for example, a lot of these trucker jobs, which there are like hundreds of thousands of men who they're truckers, they drive, that's what they do. They drive across the country all the time, driving these big trucks, delivering goods, whatever, across the country. There's a lot of talk now of automated cars, automated vehicles replacing these people's jobs. And Tucker Carlson was like, this is going to be devastating for an entire demographic of young men, or even not even necessarily young men, but middle-aged men who this is the job they've been doing for years. This is how they provide for their family. And they don't necessarily have like the same skills as somebody else. Like they're not going to be able to go work in IT or get a job at some startup. And Ben Shapiro looks at him and he was like, so what, you think the government should regulate it and not allow these jobs to be taken over by robots? And Tucker Carlson looks at him and he's like, are you serious? Yes. He's like, are you kidding me? You think that we should say, oh, don't regulate it, government, because no government regulation. Oh, that's bad. It's a bad thing. Tucker Carlson's looking at him like, are you an idiot? Of course we should regulate that. Of course these jobs should not be automated, because what it means is that many men will lose their jobs. It's the destruction of many families. And where are they going to go? It's not like these jobs are like other jobs are opening up. It's like they're closing out all of these jobs for automated robots to take over. And it's just so, Tucker Carlson in a split second exposed how this mainstream big con, these values coming from people like Ben Shapiro and TPUSA, it's so milquetoast. It's so pointless. What is the point of the government if you are not going to promote the good? If you're not going to make policies that are going to bolster families and keep jobs here, keep jobs in the hands of real live human beings. Of course, personal responsibility plays a big role in our lives. Of course it does. But you know what? I think the right tends to focus too much on personal responsibility. We also forget that our mainstream culture and every mainstream machine out there, including the public school system, tells students that their only shot at a good life is to pay $70,000 a year for a university, get themselves into a massive amount of debt, go for a useless liberal arts degree that isn't going to help them set themselves up for the future. We don't encourage trades enough. We don't equip young people to properly prepare themselves professionally and financially for life. This plays a big part in combination with everything else in setting up families for the future. So yeah, we can talk about personal responsibility, but when you have all these mainstream machines pushing kids into a future that is not suitable, and that's not suitable for young families, personal responsibility only plays a small role. Okay, this does not mean that the government should be paying for moms to stay home. Okay, two things can be true at once. I'm not saying that we should create this huge welfare state by giving out handouts, and there are so many policies, that just essentially like pay for things for families. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that there are many policies that they can change even down to tax breaks that would support families. For example, in Poland, if you have 4 more kids, you pay 0 income tax. Yeah, if you have 4 more kids under a certain age, you pay 0 income tax. Our bloated government is so hell-bent on taking huge chunks of our hard-earned money to fund wars overseas and pay for lazy federal employees that they give up on offering better tax breaks and making it easier for families to have more children, when that is the most important thing for the future of America, especially considering the decline of our birth replacement rate, declining rates of marriage. But the government is just too greedy. They'd rather take all of your money. They don't want to give these important tax breaks. So you can talk about even these small policy changes where the government would support families and support more families having children. So we are failing on both an individual and collective level to raise our children in the way they are supposed to be raised, by mothers and close family members and high trust community members. We are failing. And it makes my blood boil when I see these daycare videos. It is so much bigger to me than a mom who just goes to work and drops her kid off. It is a direct reflection of how far our society has fallen away from how we're supposed to raise our families. And it's like I said, again, for the millionth time, this is both on an individual and a collective level. And people on the right focus way too much on just the individual, personal responsibility. Yeah, that's important, but we're not doing anything to talk about the collective level. And that's why our economy is in the toilet. Our government is more greedy than they care about anything else. So after that rant, let's talk about the practical tip. This is my number one practical tip for any moms who are juggling work, whether it's part-time or full-time. Because keep in mind that actually most moms in this country, they work at least a little bit part-time on the side, or if they're not already full-time, especially, like I said, in this economy where it's harder than ever to live on a single income. So this practical tip is, just like we've been talking about, raise your kids in a high-trust community. Invest time in families around you. And find a community of people that you trust and that you share values with, you share beliefs with, and a community that you can share childcare with. Now, like I said, we're never going to return to the old days, which obviously had their own issues. It's not like, the high trust village of our ancestors was perfect. No, we're never going to return to that. But I think there are a lot of things that we can do to build a stronger community around ourselves. And the number one complaint that I get from a lot of women who reach out to me online is that they feel really alone. They just feel really isolated. They feel like there's no help. They don't live near family. And I know it's harder than ever today to live near our family because jobs take us away. Our families, most people, they grow up in areas where it's just not suitable for young families to start their lives. So it's like you just tend to live farther away from your families. So it's time to make an effort. I would really encourage you, if you're a mom, or even if you're not a mom yet, if you're newly married or if you're about to get married, really make an effort to create a community around yourself of people who believe in the same things, of people who have the same values, and people who you can help and can help you in return. So this is why I always say, I've said it many times on my podcast, I strongly recommend you find an Orthodox Christian community in your area. If you need help finding a parish, you can always reach out to me. But that has been, aside from my parents living in our neighborhood, they're literally around the corner. We can walk there in less than 5 minutes. Aside from that, our Orthodox Christian community has been the absolute best thing for our family, for raising our kids. It has absolutely been the best thing because these communities are much more likely to have a built-in support system for moms and young kids than any other community. I'm not saying that every Christian or every Orthodox Christian parish is perfect. I'm not saying that they all have super tight-knit communities, but ours does, and many do. I'm just saying that these communities are more likely to have built-in support systems where you can ask for help. You can maybe find a little group of moms at your church or even in your neighborhood that you can trade off babysitting with. You can trade off a homeschool co-op with. Like I know a lot of little homeschooling co-ops where moms trade off teaching. Or if you're not even talking about homeschooling, I'm talking about just like sort of the daycare babysitting, they trade off looking after kids. So, maybe one day you get multiple kids to look after, but then one day of the week you get to send your kids to someone else's home to be looked after. And then you get a day to yourself, whether it's you need to work or you can get some stuff done around the house. You were never meant to raise children alone. Moms out there, please know this. You were never meant to do it alone. And I understand why so many young moms are discouraged and they're disheartened and they don't enjoy motherhood because it can be so overwhelming. Staying at home by yourself all day with multiple kids who are like under the age of 4 or 5, it can drive you crazy with no help from anybody. Yeah, I get it. It can drive you nuts. And two things can be true at once. Children are a blessing from God, and we are so fortunate to be moms. And then the second thing can also be true is that it's really freaking hard to do it alone, and we were never meant to do it alone. So my practical tip for you is to invest in this high trust community. Create one for yourself if you haven't created it already. You can create it. And if you don't want to find that sort of community in a local parish, you can create it yourself. Have a little text group of moms that are nearby. You guys get together. You can even sit down and have a little meeting with the other moms. Have a meeting with the other moms and be like, hey, let's help each other because I need help and I'm sure you need help too. But we've become so hyper individualized and we've become so just obsessed with ourselves that it's kind of impossible for these things to exist organically now. So we have to create them. That's my advice. For those of you moms out there, if you are a working mom and you have to send your kid to daycare, I am sorry. I am. And I used to be that kind of person who would look at that with judgment. But I say it with much remorse that I don't want to sit here and judge moms who have to send their kids to daycare. It makes me really emotional. I don't want to sit here and judge you. I want to help you. That's what I want to do. Because it has been, it's easy for us. I've said this in past episodes. It's really easy for stay-at-home moms to sit here and feel superior to working moms. Like, oh, we made it work. I made it work. I stayed home. You never know what other families are going through. You never know. And it's like I said, again, it's not just on an individual level. It's collectively, our culture has made so many mistakes that have left moms and kids separated. So I want to help you. I don't want to judge you. I don't want to shame you. And I want to see families thrive. I want to see them. I want to see moms and kids close together. Obviously, kids are not meant to be with mommy every single day forever, but we're talking about young kids under 3. Yeah, they kind of are. I highly recommend a book called Being There by Erica Komisar. It was the only baby book I read when I was pregnant with my first child, because I'm not a fan of baby books. They're all like fear mongering and they tell you to do the stupidest things when you're pregnant. But I did read this one because I was working full time at the time and I thought I was going to be Miss Career Mom. And I read that book. I finished it just before I gave birth. I gave birth to my daughter and I saw her and I said, I can't do it. I just can't do it. I cannot go into the office anymore. The first day I had to go back into the office after my maternity leave, I cried the whole way there. And I got home and I cried to my mom and she looked at me and she says, we're going to make it work. If you want to quit, we're going to make it work. And we all made it work. And I really recommend that book to people because it explains to you exactly why the needs of the child are so different when it comes to the mother and the father in the first few years. And then of course, after the first few years, children are meant to be separated from the mommy in healthy pockets of time. They're meant to go off and be more independent. If you want to send your kids to school later, like do that. There are a lot of great school options out there now. But it is important for moms to be with young kids as much as possible because those early years, you can't get them back. And that creates the really secure attachment. It creates a very emotionally healthy child to know that mommy is there in those first few years of life. And it's really important those first 3 years specifically. You can read the book Being There to get more information about why. But the role of mothers is special. It's sacred and it's so unique and it's different from dads. And I'm sure there are plenty of other channels out there that talk about the uniqueness of dad's roles in kids' lives. And that's really important too, just as important, but different. So let's embrace our role as mothers and do the best that we can to raise children that are well-adjusted, that are moral, and that are intelligent and are kind. So thanks for listening, guys. If you guys want to see any other topics coming up in the near future, let me know. Don't forget to like and share the channel if you like it. Subscribe to the channel, turn on your post notifications. We're still small, but growing a little bit, which is really nice. And I love being here with you guys. I don't know how many more weeks I got left before this baby comes because I went in for a checkup and my doctor asked me, he's like, do you want a cervical check? He was like, you don't have to do it. It's totally up to you. And I was like, I'm curious. I really want to know. I'm like basically 2 centimeters dilated, you guys. And I'm almost 37. No, I was 36 weeks when I got that cervical check. I'm like, so I don't know. I feel like this baby's probably going to come soon. And when the baby does come, I obviously won't be here for a little bit. I'm trying to film some episodes just to cram them all in the next couple weeks and then release them for a few weeks after, but I don't know when this baby's coming. Just if you do pray, please say a prayer for us because it could happen soon. And you never know what's going to happen in birth, but it will be fun. We're just really grateful for another healthy baby. So much love to everybody. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next time.